Hey there creators, Niamh here, and today I have a sewing project and I've already started it. I already put the embroidery on. It's this really cool Beatles design with my daughter's name underneath, and she absolutely loves the Beatles. So we looked up a lot of different Beatles designs since this is going to be a lunch bag for her. She's starting school later this month, and it is her first time going to public school. She's going into first grade, so we're really excited about that. And for each of my kids, I've made lunch bags for them. My son had a Star Trek one, and then a few years later, I made him a Doctor Who one, and my daughter has this Pokemon one. And it's actually pretty beat up now because it is 2 years old now, so we're getting close to the time when she might need a new lunch bag too, but this has worked really well, and I basically use this as a bit of a template for Brigit's lunch bag, except it is going to be smaller because I did make hers a little bit too big. So for this, we have a flap going over, and we have this yellow submarine fabric. This will be the flap that goes over, and I've basically made it 9 by 12 inches. We're going to lose probably an inch total around, and I probably will do the same thing that I did for Rhiannon's here, where I made this angle right here, and I'll do the same thing here. We'll probably cut a little bit off. And so that's the flap that goes over. There will be a Velcro strip right here. Alright, and so the body of the lunch bag itself is, I went 9 inches here, 9 inches here, and then it was like 4 inches. I think that's the amount I put just to give it the body of it. So that's where it will go there. And I cut that both out of the yellow submarine fabric and the purple pull fabric. So this fabric, the pull, it's the same fabric that I use to make cloth diapers. One side has a sort of plastic coating on it. It's called polyurethane laminate. That's why it's called pull and PUL. And that basically just makes it so that it's water resistant, and it's also perfect to use for this sort of project, where we'll have food in here. There'll probably be spills, things like that, so having the slick surface here just makes it easier to clean up. And then we could use the non-slick side as a decorative side for the outside. Now I also have some of these here. These are 9 by 4 inches, since the bottom of the bag is going to be 4 inches. It's going to be a 4-inch depth. These will go on each side, so that will be the side here and one side over here, the slick side on the inside and the non-slick side on the outside. And then these ones, because I cut out 4 of these, this one I will sew the slick sides out like that, and that will go on the inside here as the drink separator. Alright, so, and one last thing, the bias tape that I'll be using all around these will be this kind of aqua-y color. I tried to match this color as best I could. I was also sort of matching this color, but obviously this is a little bit lighter than this, but I quite like the way it looks. So that'll go around all the edges. So alright, so let's get started on this.
Alright, so I actually want this to face differently. I want the submarines to be facing upright, whether you're looking at it from the front or the back. So to do that, I had to cut the whole thing in half, and then sew down the middle end. I had them facing each other and making sure that they were both facing upright when I turned it around. And now I'm going to mark the locations of the Velcro on the front panel. So the front and back panels are 9 inches lengthwise, but the whole panel here is 11 inches because there's 2 inches for the bottom part. So I'm making the Velcro strips 9 inches, and they will stop at the area where the front panel is supposed to end. Okay, so now we have the middle part, that section that's separating the drink part in the inside of the lunch bag. So because Pull has that plastic coating, the polyurethane laminate, when you sew on that part, it bunches up a lot. So what I have to do when I have to sew straight onto the Pull part, if I'm sewing on the other side where it's not shiny, it's no problem. But since I'm sewing on the Pull part, I have to put some sort of fabric or stabilizer there so that it doesn't bunch up. And basically, I just put the bias tape on the top there. And now I marked the halfway point in the inside panels, just so that I can mark where the divider, the cup divider, is going to be. So I marked about 2 inches out from the middle because the bottom part is 4 inches. And then I made a straight line going all the way up to show exactly where that will be sewn. So first I have to sew the bottom part of the cup separator. That's where it goes. And then this is a tricky part. I have to cut the corners off so that I can turn the apparatus, the cup separator, so that I can sew down that way. And that is a tight sew right there, and I didn't have the line quite long enough, so I added more of the line there so that I could pin it exactly where it needs to be sewn and sew straight down that line. And then I did the same thing for the other side. And you see there's a lot of fiddling around here because now it's all bunched up, so it's not exactly straight looking. And at this point I'm pulling off all the stabilizer because we don't need that anymore. And I should have used the wash away kind, but I didn't. I used the tear away kind. So the little bits in where the zigzag stitch were still there, but they'll eventually leave. So now I'm going to be sewing the outside fabric to the inside fabric here. So I'm just pinning that straight on there and sewing all the way around. So now I need to start working on the front panel. So I'm going to do the flap. That's the term that I use for it, the flap part. So, it's thundering here. I don't know if you can hear that on the thing. But so to angle it, I went about 1.5 inches up and 1.5 inches out, and then drew a straight line so that it would be an even angle there on both sides, and trimmed it off. And then and I also didn't film the part where I put the Velcro strip on the back part, but I did before I did this part. And now I'm sewing the bias tape around so it's nice and clean looking. Okay, so at this point I have I've already done one side of the side flap, the side panels. So now I'm going to show how I did now I'm going to show how to do it. Basically I'm marking right in the middle on both sides, and then lining up that middle mark to the sewn part at the bottom, and then pinning one side. I sew one side at a time, and then I'm going to flip it over, and once I've sewn that, and sew the other side, and the bottom is done last. So So I'm having the the shiny part facing in and the not shiny part facing out. Yeah, so I sew straight down there. And now to do the bottom part, I'm just lining it up to the middle, and some of it will go over because it's going to overlap a little bit because it's not made specifically for this size. And then I just sew down that part and trim off the excess. So now the actual body of the lunch bag is complete. Obviously now we need to add in some finishing touches like the bias tape all around so that we don't have raw edges. So that part's done, and the corners were definitely tricky, but I worked with that. So now I have to sew the flap over on that side, on the back side, and I have the embroidery facing inward and the inside part where the Velcro's at facing out because it's going to flip around and close that way. So just a straight stitch along that way. And now at this point, because it's not completely done, obviously, we do have to add in, before I can put the final bias tape, I have to make the strap that you hold it on. And I hadn't actually cut this out before, but basically it was about, I think, 2.5 inches. And at the last minute, I decided to do an embroidery on it. So I put in a design in my machine and pinned it down to my hoop and put a sulky fabric over so that this is a stabilizer that makes sure that the needle doesn't kind of stick to the fabric. And then I decided to put We All Live in a Yellow Submarine on there. I almost put Can't Buy Me Love because that's my daughter's favorite Beatles song, but I figured it didn't really fit with all the other submarines that were on there, so I went ahead and put We All Live in a Yellow Submarine, and she loves it, so it's not a big deal. So now I have to sew it to the other side, and then I'm going to be putting bias tape around it, and I decided to go with a secondary color, a purple color, which most closely matches the purple that I'm using. It's a little bit darker, but that's okay. I think it still looks good. So I do a straight stitch down, and then when I'm done with the straight stitch, I go over it with a zigzag stitch. So that just gives it a nice finished look. And really closes up the open side of the bias tape. So now that part gets sewn into onto the flaps of the side panels of the lunch bag itself, and the finishing part here is to put the purple bias tape over the opening, all the opening, and there's a lot of fiddling around with this because I have to move it in special ways so that I don't accidentally sew parts of the other part of the bag that I don't want to sew. And now that part's finished, and that's looking pretty good. And the last final thing that I need to do is put on the middle Velcro that just closes there's the flap that goes over it, but there's also a Velcro part that closes the bag itself, so right on the inside there, so that it's not flying open. And to get it down there, because using that small of a Velcro to keep it to stay, it's difficult to do pins, so I just use the sticky spray, and I spray it down, and then I go ahead and sew it on. All right, and there's the end.